me for 12 hours. If it's 12 hours or more, assume that I've been picked up.
It's been 7 days, close to 7 days. Let's talk about it, y'all. Middle America.
And you ain't black.
I don't know what I said. The first time ever any...
What are you people?
We're Americans.
We are Americans indeed. My name is Vincent, and this is Middle America. Shout out to Ben Moen first. Guys, I gotta tell you, this is a. I'm not. I don't even know. I don't even know how to start this off. Okay, guys. For those of you who are new, this is Middle America. Initially, what we tried to do was to try to kind of strike a balance between left wing and right wing, and find ways to get together as a country. And that was the initial goal of the channel. But then my position politically, whatever you want to call it, began to evolve because of what I noticed as a bigger threat, more than left versus right, because as I began to talk more and more, I began to see, based on your beautiful people's very patient corrections, that the divide really isn't between left and right in this country at the popular citizen level, but it's something else. It seems to me the divide is between authoritarianism and just plain old freedom. There are those who believe that there should only be one narrative that all of us believes, and there should only be one perspective, and that all other perspectives are dangerous and need to be deplatformed if they go against the party line. Me personally, I believe that that's a dangerous perspective to hold to, and that's why I don't hold to it. And so the point of Middle America now is for us to look at these stories and to say to one another, hey, are you seeing what I'm seeing? If you're seeing something different from what I'm seeing, let's talk about it. That's why there's that call in if you disagree ticker on that's on the top of the screen, because I really mean it. The format of this show is not necessarily one guy sits and pontificates to everybody else and tells everybody what they're supposed to believe. Rather, it's I'm going to report on the news, whatever as I see it. I'll give my interpretation, and if somebody has a different interpretation of those events, you can call in. We'll discuss it, agree, disagree, or whatever, and we'll come closer to the truth. As my Muslim friends, the truth is plain from error. Okay. Having said that as an introduction, this story is probably the most extreme version of this concern of mine. This idea that we're only allowed to hear one narrative and that all other narratives need to be silenced. Now, we have been covering the Russia-Ukraine conflict, as everybody else has done, and as we have seen, there is a specific sort of narrative that we are all supposed to believe. The narrative is that Russia's horrible. They did this completely in an unprovoked manner. Russia was not provoked at all in any way, shape, or form. Vladimir Putin is a madman, and Volodymyr Zelensky is a hero, and the Ukrainians are universally, all of them are victims. And anybody who challenges that narrative is obviously a tool of Russia, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, one of the things that's really been amazing is that the media, the legacy media, who could not agree on anything, couldn't agree if the sky was blue or if grass was green, across the board, whether it's MSNBC, Fox News, CNN, et cetera, across the board are pretty much holding pat to this narrative about the conflict, okay? With Tucker Carlson accepted, pretty much everybody else is holding this line and is not challenging the line at all. When I first heard about the conflict in Russia and Ukraine, I immediately took the side of legacy media and pretty much 9/10 of my friends because, partly because I hadn't looked at the situation, to be honest with you, and partly because even though a lot of us want to believe that we're free-thinking people, the corrosive effect of 4 or 5 plus years of anti-Russian propaganda that we have heard from our media. Now, remember, the context of the anti-Russian propaganda that we've all been under for the last 5 years was aimed at Trump. So you were kind of using the Russians as a stooge to get at Trump because the Democratic Party couldn't believe that they lost an election. And so the Russia conspiracy stuff was designed to gain power back that they lost, that they felt was rightfully theirs. But what happened was it has poisoned the minds of every American to not even think that the Russians may not be as evil as our media has portrayed them to be. Now, because of the uniformity of the legacy media, a lot of us have turned to independent media with other folks that have different opinions on the legacy media. And one of those folks is Gonzalo Lira. Gonzalo Lira is a Chilean-American journalist who was basically stationed living in Kharkiv, Ukraine, and reporting. Now, Mr. Lira took a decidedly anti-narrative perspective. That's what I call it. Gonzalo took an anti-narrative perspective on the conflict in Ukraine and Russia. And obviously, when you take an anti-narrative perspective, that means he's immediately pro-Putin, pro-Russia, anti-Ukraine. And so Gonzalo has been telling us all along that the Ukrainians are the Ukrainian military, the Nazis. We know Azov Battalion, we know C-14, we know Right Sector, we know Svoboda. We know that there is a significant neo-Nazi element that is highly armed, highly motivated, and borderline, if not full-blown, fanatical. And so that he has been exposing these things, and he's been talking about some of the things that we've talked about on this channel. The Ukrainian government and military explicitly and actively using human shields, etc., etc. The pre-clip that you saw at the beginning of the video, and we'll play it again for you because it might have been clipped out. Here is one of the last recorded messages that Gonzalo posted very recently. Check it out.
So I want you guys to know that if ever you don't hear from me for 12 hours, if it's 12 hours or more, assume that I've been picked up.
Assume that I've been picked up if you haven't heard from me 12 hours or more. As I said in the intro, it's been close to 7 days. Gonzalo hasn't been seen from or heard from. And just today, a very credible source in my view by the name of Scott Ritter posted the following about Gonzalo, where he says the following. When Belarusian authorities pulled Roman Prochevich, a blogger who had served in a combat tour in the neo-Nazi Azov Battalion before working for Radio Free Europe's Belarus channel out of Prague, off an airplane in May 2021 on charges of inciting a political opposition, roughly the equivalent of sedition, the world went crazy, accusing Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko of trampling on free speech. Prochevich is alive and well, living under house arrest while awaiting trial. When reports emerged that Gonzalo Lira, a Chilean social media influencer who resided in Kharkov, Ukraine, and who published online content critical of Ukrainian government, was kidnapped, tortured, and murdered by the Kraken unit, part of the Azov Battalion affiliated with the Ukrainian Security Service, the SBU, the West is silent. Free speech isn't a one-way street. To remain silent in the murder of Gonzalo Lira is to be complicit in his death and the deaths of all journalists who pursue the truth, even if it runs counter to the mainstream narrative. Critical thinking should not be a death sentence. Unfortunately for Gonzo Lira, it seems that it was. Now, this is Scott Ritter. Scott Ritter is a former UN weapons inspector. He was massively critical about the illegal our actual illegal invasion into Iraq under the premise of weapons of mass destruction. He was a weapons inspector. He spoke out against it and paid a heavy price for daring to do so. For daring to remember, dear listener, the last time we had complete uniformity on a topic from left wing and right wing establishment media types was the Iraq War. And Mr. Ritter spoke out against it, and he would kind of know because he was a UN weapons inspector. Mr. Ritter is saying that Gonzalo is KIA. So there you go. That's the latest on Gonzalo. I told you guys that I would give you guys an update. This is what we know so far. Here's Ken. You don't even know how to pronounce his name. You don't even know what the facts are. You're just parroting, grifting. It's disgusting. Okay, Ken. All I did was read what Scott Ritter said. But Ken, if you have a disagreement on any of the points that I've made, you can call in if you want to have a discussion, my brother. Welcome to the show, and thank you for participating. One of the things that people have to understand is just because people disagree with you, they don't have to disagree with you nicely. So I take no offense to my brother Ken saying what he's saying. I hope he will call in and we can have a rational discussion about the issue. But like I said, I don't have a problem with disagreement and strident disagreement because Middle America is not an echo chamber. So I appreciate Ken's comment, and if you are sweet on your brother, please be nice to Ken in the comments section. Okay, now that's the latest on this pretty terrible situation. Now, I have the actual full video that Gonzalo posted on, and so we're actually going to be able to watch that video together and hear Gonzalo chat. And we're actually going to be able to hear Gonzalo in his own words. So that's cool. So here is the man in his own words. Now, he is reacting to a Daily Beast article. Daily Beast is a progressive outlet, whatever you want to call it. And they published an article on 21 March, which I have excerpts from, but he is also reading directly from. And it is entitled, "The Daily Beast is Trying to Get Me Killed." That's literally the title of the article that he wrote. Of the YouTube channel that he publishes from. So we're going to hear Gonzalo in his own words talk about this Daily Beast article, which I think Demetrius basically said as well. Calling Daily Beast progressive is misleading. Liberalism is not progressive. Okay, so it's hopefully Ben agrees with this. It's a neoliberal news outlet that obviously is not friendly to our brother Gonzalo. Here's Gonzalo in his own words.
Where was I say is propaganda or just
Okay, so Gonzalo, this is a 16-minute video. We're not gonna review the entire 16-minute video, but hopefully this will get you close to what he's saying. Signs of bias said still no official confirmation that he's dead. Correct. There is no video so far. If you're looking for the video, when the video gets published, you're not going to find it on Middle America. We do not do war porn on this channel. Scott Ritter believes that he's dead. I don't know ultimately whether or not he's dead, but here's a big homie, Gonzalo, in his own words, less than a month ago.
Critics and expert observers note that he's... I don't know where it is. The fucking thing is so goddamn long. I didn't count the paragraphs, but take my word for it. I mean, you can look it up. I'm reading straight from the goddamn thing. So, in a paragraph, he says, honest belief may help explain why Lira seems willing to expose himself to danger.
Okay, so
all I answered to him was to have...
So what Gonzalo is talking about here is this Daily Beast article, again, that was published 21 March, and it was a hit piece directed specifically at him, okay? So he is giving his commentary on this Daily Beast article.
Send me the name of his attorney, his personal attorney. And, through different legal means, I can establish residency in the UK, and the Daily Beast publishes in the UK. And so I can sue him for defamation in a UK court.
So that's him talking about being defamed as a Russian asset, whatever in the article. Here we go.
Paragraph, he says, honest belief may help explain why Lira seems willing to expose himself to danger. So they establish that they know that I'm in danger here in Ukraine. Both he...
Now, that's a pretty damning admission. Why would he be in danger for simply posting the facts as he sees it in Ukraine? Well, we all know why. We all know that the Ukrainians recently, about 3 or 4 weeks ago, nationalized or unified their media. So they've outlawed independent journalism. We've also covered how the Ukrainians are discouraging regular citizens from chronicling what's going on because they want the flow of information to only come from one direction. So the Daily Beast in this article is admitting that for the crime of speaking about what's going on in Ukraine on the ground as a citizen, that this man is in danger for doing so.
Critics and expert observers note that he's received death threats and withstood efforts to track down his home address from people outraged by his insistence on spewing propaganda. Now, you can debate whether what I say is propaganda or just trying to show the truth.
Which again, this is what's happening. This has happened a bunch of times on this channel. Anytime anyone says anything that is against the overarching narrative that our mainstream media is telling us about this conflict, if you don't take this simplistic perspective that Putin is a madman and that the Ukrainians are universally victims, heroic victims, then you are speaking Russian propaganda. You remember this kind of issue, and Glenn Greenwald brought this up. This is what happened during the Trump administration. Anytime you said anything that was contrary to what neoliberal media was saying about Trump, you were a Russian asset. It was Russian propaganda. Don't you remember? We had 50 members of the alphabet group, CIA, NSA, FBI, etc., that all signed a letter that told us that the Hunter Biden, let's do the report, and then you can call in afterwards once we do the report, and then you can agree or disagree based on the facts that we see. You're number one in queue. But you remember this. They told us that the Hunter Biden laptop was propaganda from Russians. And it wasn't just the media. It was the intelligence apparatus in this country. They all got together, about 50 of them, and told us that was the case. Then after Biden got elected, recently we're told, oh, actually, just kidding. It wasn't Russian propaganda. It was all 100% true. So anytime the media has been able to successfully and very powerfully, because remember, when the New York Post posted about Hunter's laptop, they were removed from Twitter. So this has been a very powerful methodology that's used for information and thereby thought control, which is to say anybody that doesn't speak the appropriate orthodox narrative about what's happening in Russia, Ukraine, or Trump in Russia is a Russian propagandist or Russian asset. We saw this with Hillary Clinton calling Tulsi a Russian asset, etc., etc. We continue.
That's on you. You have to decide. But notice what he says. He says here, actually, it's not both he and his critics and expert observers. See, because those are three individuals, so both is only for two, but okay. Both he, his critics, and expert observers note that he's received death threats and withstood efforts to track down his home address. So he's conceding right there, the Daily Beast is conceding right there in the article that people have tried to track me down. People have tried to find out where I am. And he's saying it, that I'm saying this, but also my critics are saying this is true. And expert witnesses, or expert observers rather, are saying that this is true. That people have been trying to find me.
So the Daily Beast knew that this man's life was in extreme danger from the Ukrainian government. Okay.
And then later down, and just a couple of paragraphs later, which I posted on my Telegram, by the way, or I will post. I'm a little confused. I'm a little fuzzy because, the stress.
He's a little fuzzy because of the stress. Earlier in the video, he talked about not being able to sleep, etc., etc. Poor Gonzalo, check out the Gray Zone's report on the torture of Ukrainian-based left-wing supporters and journalists. Yes, we actually, Demetrius, the episode right before this one, we actually did a long-form review of the Gray Zone article in which we chronicled how the SBU, which is the Ukrainian security services, have kidnapped, tortured, murdered not only journalists, but also Ukrainian mayors who are working with Russian officials to create a civilian corridor out of these high conflict areas. The SBU and the Ukrainians have then kidnapped, assassinated, tortured, murdered, kidnapped the children of these mayors, etc., etc. So we covered that. We covered that. This is what the Ukrainian government is doing currently. Okay? That's Ukraine. And as Ben Webb said, I couldn't articulate it any better. I have no dog in this fight. I actually think this is a case where both sides are bad. Not every conflict is good versus evil. Not every conflict has a hero. Correct. So as regards Russia versus Ukraine, I believe both of them are horrible. My problem with our coverage of Ukraine and the U.S.'s position on Ukraine is that we're spending billions of dollars in arms for further provocation and further conflict and further bleeding out of the Russian economy and literal bleeding out of the Ukrainian people. That is my problem. But as far as the sides, the figureheads between Russia and Ukraine, I don't believe either one of them has a righteous cause. I believe both of them are deeply, deeply evil, almost as deeply evil as my government. And that's saying a lot. Note I said almost. We continue.
A quote, Lira has claimed that the Zelensky administration, which I call the Zelensky regime, but the Zelensky administration sent...
This is again where I disagree with him, Max Blumenthal, Aaron Mate. I do not believe that Mr. Zelensky is an evil regime dictator. I believe that Mr. Zelensky is a compromised asset of the neo-Nazis in his country who have gone on public record and threatened to kill him and hang him in the middle of the town square if he did anything that went towards a peaceful resolution of this conflict. And we know that the SBU is serious because the SBU, the same group that is feared to have kidnapped Gonzalo, is the same group that executed Denis Kyriev in the town square in Kiev because he was working on negotiating a peace agreement with the Russians. We covered that about a month and a half ago. We continue.
Men to his home in Kharkov to disappear him, but that he miraculously avoided them and was at least recently hiding out in an undisclosed location in the city. The Ukrainian government did not respond to a request for comment.
Unbelievable.
But many experts doubt the veracity of this account and question whether he's really still in Kharkov. Okay, let's go through it one by one. So, the Ukrainian government did not respond to a request for comment. That means that the Daily Beast got in touch with the Zelensky regime.
Correct.
To ask about me.
Correct.
To see if they knew about me.
Correct.
I mean, they're sort of like, hey, Zelensky regime, there's this guy in Kharkov called Gonzalo Lira, and he's saying things that, you guys don't like. Do you have any comment? Okay, so there's that. Then many experts doubt the veracity of this account. But wait a second. You say many experts doubt the veracity of my account, that people have tried to find where I am. And why am they going to try to find where I am? Because they want to get me, right? And you said so just 2 paragraphs ago.
Correct. They acknowledged that this man's life is in danger and that this man has been threatened on numerous occasions. Then they reached out to the Ukrainian government. They reached out to the Ukrainian government and said, hey, you know this guy in the city that he's in? Because at the time, he was moving all over the place. It was kind of like a bin Laden situation. Is he in Tora Bora? Is he in Pakistan? Etc., etc. And the Daily Beast contacted the Ukrainian government, which they knew that they were looking for this guy, and they understand how the Ukrainians treat any sort of opposition, whether it's political opposition, whether it's media opposition. They understood that, and they went and told the Ukrainian government that about Gonzalo. An American media outlet.
And then he goes on to say, and these many experts question whether he's really still in Kharkov as well. Well, I released that Lviv chocolate video.
They mentioned where he was to elements of the Ukrainian government.
Where I showed the Church of the Assumption, the Cathedral of the Assumption, and the destroyed Kiev chocolate store before this article came out. So it's indisputably true that I'm in Kharkov, and they knew it before they published this. They knew it before they published this. I mean, that video got something like 80,000 views, and you're telling me that this guy who's obsessing about me, who's collected an enormous amount of information.
Darren Hoyt says, I hope Pat Lancaster will be safe being a truthful reporter. Darren, stay tuned, because we have an update about Pat Lancaster that I think you're going to be interested in. And dear listener, stay tuned, because you're going to want to hear about Pat Lancaster and his work, etc. We continue.
Actually, he didn't collect any fucking information. He picked it up all from Kiwi Farms. I mean, kind of lazy journalism, if you ask me. But anyway, this guy, he knows, or the Daily Beast, they know that I actually am in Kharkov. And here they're saying, with the weasel words that escape defamation, because of course, me being in Kharkov goes to my credibility. If I'm not in Kharkov, I don't have any credibility. And so they're attacking.
Which is one of the reasons that this man stayed in that area, because he wanted to be a credible source, and he wanted the things that he was reporting on to not be so easily dismissed. He wanted to be able to say, I'm here. I am seeing this shit. So he didn't leave, even though his life was threatened on numerous occasions. And I wanna take an excerpt, dear listener, from the Daily Beast itself. Listen to what the Daily Beast said about him right before they admitted that they contacted the Ukrainian government. Guys, I generally don't tell you to share this video, but this is a video I do believe needs to be shared because we need to get one of the bigs, whether it's Tucker, Jimmy Dore, whatever, to do an extended report on this, because you guys are not going to believe what we end up seeing as this goes on. But look at what the Daily Beast said about Gonzalo. Lira has publicly insisted that he has never been a paid agent of anyone and decried the use of his content in what he himself has identified as Russian propaganda, insisting, despite his clear parroting of pro-Kremlin talking points. You see that? So this guy, Gonzalo, on a multitude of occasions spoke out against Russian propaganda and spoke out against Russian media using his videos for propaganda. But you see, this doesn't help them because they want to position this man as some sort of Russian asset. We'll get to that in a second. So they have to put that editorial in parentheses so that their readers don't get misled into thinking that this was a genuine person. Insisting that he's not on anyone's side and just tells objective truth that he observes and analyzes them. The individuals most, guys, listen to this. The individuals most familiar with Lira and his work, who the Daily Beast spoke to, believe this is true. They've seen no sign that he's taken Russian money. He also describes the conflict using terms like war and invasion, which blatantly fly in the face of Russian propaganda and media control laws. Remember, in Russia, because they're also a fascist state ruled by a dictatorial regime, you cannot describe this as war, or you can't use the term invasion, because remember, they use the term special operation, the Russians did, to talk about how they invaded Ukraine. So he is using terminology that if he spoke in Moscow would get him arrested. But simultaneous to that, he's still a Moscow plant and a Russian plant so dangerous that you have to get on the phone and contact Ukrainian officials to out this man and say, hey, he's still in Kharkiv. From what I can ascertain, he's just a YouTuber. This is his sincere belief. So the Daily Beast had to admit this about Gonzalo. That he wasn't paid, there is no proof that he was paid, and that he has spoken explicitly against Russian propaganda, and that he has used terminology that is against Russian propaganda efforts. In spite of that, they still try to frame him as a Russian asset. And in spite of that, they still try to imply that he was a propagandist for Russia, etc., etc. We continue.
Credibility by questioning whether I am in Kharkov, even though they know that video of me in Kharkov exists the day before this article came out. And it was a live stream. You can't fake live streams.
Correct.
Okay? So they know that I'm here.
Hi, John.
But the thing that really just chaps my ass is that, see, they called up the Ukrainian government. Now, why does this matter? Well, this morning it's coming out that the state security services of the Zelensky regime, that is the SBU, the fascist pigs, they picked up a TikToker and they arrested him. A TikToker. And they claimed that he was acting like a spotter for the Russians. What happened?
Now, we've commented on this. Please listen very closely to what he's describing here of the Ukrainian SBU picking up a TikToker.
What happened was that he was the guy who pointed out that in the shopping mall that got blown up yesterday, it wasn't an empty shopping mall. It was filled with Zelensky regime weaponry and men.
We covered this. We covered the Ukrainians' Machiavellian, horrific use of human shields. We talked about this when they were confronted by the kindergarten teacher saying, "Why are you setting up howitzers by a school, a kindergarten?" It was kindergarten teachers fighting with Ukrainian soldiers saying, "Why are you setting up your howitzers here? They're going to respond." That would be the Russians. And then we also talked about the other fella in the mall, which the TikToker, which he's referring to, where this guy talked about how there were howitzers set up at the mall. So this is a common tactic by Hezbollah, Hamas, etc., when you're dealing with a force that's overwhelming you and you don't have the ability to do it. What you do is you run a psychological operations campaign where you parade dead civilians and say, look what these horrible people did. So you get a weapons cache, or you take a detachment of your folks and you post them up in a mosque or a school. And then America has decided, okay, what are we going to do? Are we going to let these guys shoot at us from the school? Or you're going to light up the school. So when you light up the school, it goes, oh my God, look at the Americans. They blew up a school with kids in it. Oh my God, look at the Americans. They have no respect for Allah and his prophet. Look, they destroyed a masjid. They destroyed a mosque. And the Ukrainians have been caught on camera by their own people doing the exact same thing, setting up howitzers by schools, by malls. We also looked at the interview with the young lady in the hospital. Remember the hospital that was bombed in Mariupol? Remember it had children written on it. Oh my God, the Russians specifically attacked a group of civilians in a hospital. And it turns out that by the admission of one of the victims of the explosions, she said that as because she was about 8-9 months pregnant, about to have a child, when she was in the hospital, the Ukrainian military showed up and told them that they were going to station there because the hospital had batteries. So the Ukrainian government has been consistently employing human shields. They get their own people killed and then they parade their dead on TV to get Uranized emotions up, which rightly so. Because any person of goodwill, I don't care what quote side of the conflict you're on, when you see a 8-month pregnant woman being carted off in the midst of rubble, your emotions are rightly going to be flared up. And they specifically did not mention that the Ukrainian government stationed soldiers there. So this guy right here is talking. He's talking about a TikToker who was apprehended by the Ukrainian government for the crime of noticing that they were stationing military assets by this mall populated with beautiful people created the image and likeness of God. We continue.
And that the Zelensky regime was lying when it said that the Russians just blew up the mall for no reason whatsoever. They arrested a TikToker, a fucking TikToker, a dime a dozen. And the Daily Beast, in this goddamn article, I don't know if you can see it there. In this goddamn article, they're waving a red flag in front of the Zelensky regime because God alone knows how many times they called the Zelensky regime to get a hold of somebody in their press department. Well, they're very sophisticated, their press department. I'm sure they had somebody who took their information down and passed it along to the appropriate person at the SBU. So I want you guys to know.
Again. Here's Tasco. Tasco is saying, looks like the railway bombing was a Ukrainian notch job. Never heard any attraction about the label of Russian war crimes. The same thing about Bucha. Bucha, we heard it was a war crime. It was a horrible war crime. And then all of a sudden, Bucha just disappeared from memory. Then we had the train attack. That disappeared from memory.
That if ever you don't hear from me for 12 hours during this conflict, if it's 12 hours or more, assume that I've been picked up by the SBU.
This is so sad, guys. I mean, the guy predicted it. He predicted it. He said, if you don't hear from me in 12 hours, assume I've been picked up by the SBU. The last communication from the homie, whether Telegram or Twitter, guys, last Friday. The Chilean government has issued something official about it, looking for him. His family, I believe, has also reported him missing. They are thankfully out of Ukraine, but Gonzalo himself cannot be found. And to update some of you guys, like I said, like, share, comment, and please share this video, guys. It's very, we got to get this out here. I've heard that Gonzalo's family is safe. Scott Ritter, again, just as an update, he has said that the Kraken unit in the SBU, that's the security service, that's just basically what you think of as the KGB, you know, the old school KGB in the 80s, where you would get disappeared and tortured, etc., etc. Just that's the SBU, okay? And the crazy thing about the SBU is they're doing most of the killing reported by the SBU is against Ukrainians. Denis Kyriev was a Ukrainian. Denis Kyriev was there, deployed by Ukraine to negotiate for peace. He was executed by the SBU. The mayors that we reported on a couple days ago, the SBU is kidnapping, torturing, murdering their own people, Ukrainians. So here he is saying, guys, if you don't hear from me in 12 hours, it's because they picked me up. Guys, the level of commitment to truth that this guy had is inspiring. It's inspiring. Unbelievable.
And assume that the people most responsible are the Daily Beast. The Daily Beast, who deliberately lied about me, claiming that I'm not in Kharkov, admitted to the fact that people are looking for me and want to get a hold of me in the very hit piece that they wrote, and that they contacted the Ukrainian government to make them aware that I'm in Kharkov, make them aware of my significance, make them aware so they can send some SBU goons to get me.
Unbelievable.
Understand what the Daily Beast has done.
Unbelievable.
And when I said, you know, in the title of this, that the Daily Beast wants to kill me, I'm not being hyperbolic. I'm reporting the actual truth. I mean, how do you look at it any other way? How can somebody be so irresponsible and stupid and arrogant as to think that somebody who is in a war zone, in a regime that actively targets its own people, journalists, mayors, members of its own parliament, I mean, even MMA fighters, for crying out loud, who say the wrong thing, how can they be so blind, so arrogant, so irresponsible as to say, oh, you know, there's this guy over there, we don't like him. No, because he says things that we don't like, that we don't agree with.
Correct.
And so we want you, SBU, to do our dirty work for us. You know, the author of this piece, or anybody working...
I got to tell you guys, it is hard to see it any other way. It is really hard to see what he's saying in any other light than the way that he just portrayed it. And by the way, when he said MMA fighter, and like I said, guys, we don't do war porn here, but when he says MMA fighter to silence anybody and everybody who doesn't go along with what we want to do, he's not exaggerating. Here is an MMA fighter, a Ukrainian MMA fighter, who was captured and beaten within an inch of his life by, guess who, the SBU. What was his crime? What was the crime of this MMA fighter? The crime was that he was training in a Chechen gym. So they beat this man within an inch of his life on camera. I'm not going to show the video for obvious reason. I'm not going to show that video. But they beat that man within an inch of his life. He's not exaggerating. That's what these people are doing over there. And that's who the Daily Beast, the people that just did what I showed you to that MMA fighter, those are the people that the Daily Beast called and said, hey, you know this guy's still in that region, right?
The Daily Beast, I'm not going to say anything intemperate. I want to. Oh, badly. You better believe it. But I'm not going to say anything intemperate.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Say what you want about this guy. And by the way, this guy has said stuff about relationships between men and women, American domestic politics that I virulently disagree with. But we cannot kill people or get people killed who we disagree with.
What I want to say is, you are responsible if anything happens to me. And I want everyone to know that the Daily Beast, as an organization, the editors and the individuals who work for it, every single one, are responsible for it. Because if in the West they are applying collective responsibility and blaming all Russians, cursing all Russians for this conflict that's going on, and if they automatically lionize every Ukraine, no matter how low, no matter how criminal, just because they happen to be in this situation, then that means that they believe in collective responsibility. Fine. You want to play that game of collective responsibility? Let's take it a step further. You, Daily Beast, as an organization, you who work for the Daily Beast, you who wrote this hit piece, and every single person who works for that organization, in no matter how humble a capacity or how highfalutin a capacity.
I appreciate you, Ken. I salute you, my brother. We started out a little bit rough, but we came to a conclusion and agreement with one another, and that's what Middle America is about. Thank you for participating. Have a great and safe day. Thank you.
You are responsible for me. And if something happens, I want every single person who watches this to know that it was because of the Daily Beast who got the SBU to get me. And if you think I'm being overly dramatic, they just...
I usually don't ask you guys to share this video, but honestly, guys, I do want you to share this video, not for me, but for Gonzalo, because it's so important. He's just one guy. He's not connected to any powerful outlet, anything like that. So he's not going to have powerful people to speak on his behalf unless his story gets out there. And you know that mainstream media is not going to get his story out there because that's who got him killed. If he's dead. If he's dead, inshallah.
Disappeared a TikToker, aired footage of him confessing to God knows what, and they disappeared him. That's what's going on here. Know it. Know what's going on here, and know who the accomplices are. The system pigs, those disgusting, despicable, evil, and immoral journalists. They're the ones to blame. That's all I've got to say.
Wasn't long after that Gonzalo was reported to be missing. Just want to read again from Scott Ritter, who in my mind is an extremely credible source. When reports emerged that Gonzalo Lira, a Chilean social media influencer who resided in Kharkov, Ukraine, and who published online content critical of the Ukrainian government, was kidnapped, tortured, and murdered by the Kraken unit, part of the Azov battalion affiliated with the Ukrainian Security Service SBU, the West is silent. Free speech is not a one-way street. To remain silent in the murder of Gonzalo Lira is to be complicit in his death and the deaths of all journalists who pursue the truth. Even if it runs counter to the mainstream narrative, critical thinking should not be a death sentence. Unfortunately, For Gonzalo Lira, it seems that it was, end quote. So it's, we are not going to come out and say thank you very much, Right Mayor. Thank you very much for that, for the super chat. Anything helps, because obviously we know that this video is going to get demonetized by YouTube, because YouTube has apparently taken a side, obviously. Now, watch this. Watch this, guys. So again, we don't know if he's actually dead, but Scott Ritter believes he's more dead than alive, basically. Now, here is where this story gets extremely terrifying. Now, I agree, Stephen, that every year many journalists are murdered. The problem is many journalists are not murdered by American media. You missed the first half of this video, but American media outlets essentially dox this guy and put this man's life in danger. So yeah, people die all the time, but not directly and explicitly at the hands of the United States media apparatus. Now, guys, check this out, because this stuff right here is pretty crazy. Here is a woman by the name of Sarah. Okay, and we're gonna look at who this woman is, because this response is extremely terrifying, and it's one of those situations, guys, where it's unbelievable. This woman goes by the name, and she's got an explicit Twitter account, and she's been going back and forth. You're gonna see her name is Sarah Ashton-Cirillo. Okay, now I'm not gonna get into her private life. All I'm gonna say is that she is a woman who is well, I'll let her speak for herself here. Let me fix that so that you guys can see pretty clearly. Journalist from Las Vegas reporting from the front line in Ukraine. A freelance journalist who calls Vegas home is now in Ukraine covering the war. Sarah Ashton-Cirillo spoke to Fox 5 via Zoom. Ashton-Cirillo's plan was to go to Ukraine to cover the humanitarian crisis and profile stories of refugees, but when she arrived, she would offer the chance to cover the conflict from the front line. Who offered her the chance to cover this conflict from the front line? I think 5 media members have been killed, multiple ones attacked, several kidnapped. That's very ironic. Despite the constant danger, Ashton-Cirillo shares what she sees with the world via her Twitter account and her reporting for LGBTQ Nation. I did an interview with 5 men who are gay on what it was like fighting for Ukraine, and I think me being in the community made them comfortable enough to speak with me. As a trans journalist, Ashton-Cirillo said she has been nothing but welcomed by the people in the government of Ukraine from the moment she arrived. They allowed her to embed with Ukrainian troops. The Ukrainian armed forces went ahead and offered to credential me. I've been able to be exposed to a significant amount that I can't report on until I leave. I've been around death already, some people dying in front of me, etc., etc. So this is who this woman is. She is credentialed by the Ukrainian military government, etc. Now listen to what she posted about Gonzalo's disappearance. You won't believe this, but this is where we are. This is where we are. I mean, it's unbelievable, but this is where we are, guys. And you guys just have to, you got to understand this. Here's what Sarah posts. Remember, she is in Ukraine. She's in Ukraine. She's credentialed with the military. Incredible news from Kharkiv. Reports are that Chilean-Russian spy, notice she doesn't mention that he's also a U.S. citizen. Chilean-Russian spy, real Gonzalo Lira, has been captured in Kharkov. He is allegedly a Russian saboteur posing as a journalist to destroy Ukraine. Congrats to Ukraine, to the Ukrainian security services. So she is saying, congrats to the SBU for kidnapping this guy. That's what the embedded journalist is saying about the capture of Gonzalo Lira. Now, even the Daily Beast themselves, the people who essentially doxed Gonzalo, said, well, he's not taking any money and he's using terminology that the Russians, that will get him arrested in Moscow, and he's explicitly decried Russia using his videos for propaganda. What does she say? Does she mention any of that? Nope. She's celebrating this man's capture and almost guaranteed torture and murder. She posted this either yesterday or the day before yesterday, celebrating this man's capture. So you've got a US-based media outlet, the Daily Beast, outing a US citizen for daring to speak against the crimes of Ukraine. Then you've got a US-based journalist who is embedded with the Ukrainian military, congratulating them for kidnapping a journalist and then making accusations of his apparent espionage with zero proof whatsoever. It gets better. It gets better. We continue. Max Blumenthal did a little clip on this, and look what she says. Wow, Russian media RT just ran a piece on real Gonzalo Lira with a quote from Max Blumenthal. Then she says two things. One, is Gonzalo really missing? She posted that today. Okay, it was 26 minutes from when I got the thing. She goes, is Gonzalo really missing? When 2 days ago she was just congratulating the SBU for kidnapping this guy. Now she's saying, oh, is he really missing? And then look at part two, guys. Look at part two. RT admits real Gonzalo Lira criticized the Ukrainian government and Ukrainian armed forces, which are both illegal right now. Do you see what this woman just said? She goes, hey, is he missing? Oh, no. If he is missing, that's on him because he criticized the government and the army, and you know both of those are illegal right now. Essentially saying he gets what he gets. This is an American journalist saying this about another American journalist. This is where we are. She's explicitly celebrating the literal murder of free speech, figuratively and literally, on Twitter. Unbelievable. We continue. I'm telling you guys, it gets worse. You might not think it could get worse, but it gets worse. And by the way, this is who this woman is. This is who this woman is. Thinking about the Mariupol genocide by Russia tonight, I hold out hope for the Ukraine and the Azov regiment at Azovstal. Please like and retweet to show that you stand with Ukraine and these brave patriots all over the nation. There's the Azov patch. Dear listener, everybody knows that the Azov battalion is a neo-Nazi outfit. Everybody knows that these folks are Nazis. If you're a Ukraine apologist, usually what people say is, oh, come on, man. Azov is only 900 to 2,500 people. They're very, very, very small in Ukraine. This woman is going out of her way to promote neo-Nazis. That's who she is. She's calling these people patriots. And she's saying that standing in Ukraine is equivalent to standing with the Azov battalion. I don't believe that, and neither should you. Because Mr. Zelensky was elected on a peace mandate. The average Ukrainian wants peace. I bet my bottom dollar. Hold on, I wanna read that super chat. Thank you for the super chats, guys. Please share this video. People have to know what's going on here, guys. I usually don't ask for a video share, but please share this video. I bet any dollar that this woman will use a Taylor Lorenz for receiving abuse for saying those unbelievable tweets. I love your work. I appreciate you. Yeah, 100%. She will be the victim. Taylor, we'll talk about Taylor Lorenz, but again, this kind of censorship is on a scale. On one hand, you deplatform a group of people you don't want to hear, and then on the other end of the spectrum, you get them killed. Here she is supporting the Nazi Azov battalion. There she is. Look at this, guys. I'm telling you, it gets worse. It gets worse. Watch this. Look at this conversation. So this is a guy who is responding to her celebration, spiking the football, about the kidnapping and presuming torture and death of Gonzalo. Excellent news. This Kremlin-paid spy, which again, I remind you, even the Daily Beast, the group that doxed him and got this man presumably kidnapped and tortured and killed, even they said there was no proof that he got any capital from them whatsoever. The Daily Beast had to admit that those closest to Gonzalo said he's just an honest YouTuber. He doesn't take any money from Russia. But here's this guy on YouTube. He says, this Kremlin-paid spy was spreading lies about Ukraine even before the war. A shame for Chileans and real journalists. Well-deserved. Well-deserved. How many people had Gonzalo killed? Nobody. How many people had Gonzalo injured? Nobody. How many people had Gonzalo physically assaulted? Nobody. All he was saying was he disagrees with the establishment narrative about Ukraine, and this guy spiking the football saying he deserved to be killed. Look what he says here, guys. Look what he says here. Patrick, you're next. To which Sarah Ashton-Cirillo, who once again is a United States citizen, she responds, yes, Patrick must go. Who is Patrick? They're referring to a man by the name of Patrick Lancaster. Patrick Lancaster is another person who is embedded in Ukraine and is exposing what is happening. I've seen a couple of his videos where he's talking to Ukrainian civilians, and the Ukrainian civilians are talking about how Azov soldiers in Mariupol were executing civilians as they were trying to leave the city. Patrick Lancaster, here's one. Dozens of murdered civilians found in Mariupol after Ukraine retreats. So Patrick Lancaster is a guy, citizen journalist, who's just going around chronicling all this stuff. And they're celebrating the death of Gonzalo, presumably. And then they say, now we need to go after Patrick Lancaster. And this is being discussed on Twitter. But that's okay. That's okay. How many people has YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter bragged about deplatforming? Scott Ritter, I believe Scott Ritter is currently still deplatformed from Twitter. He's still deplatformed. Has Scott Ritter called for the death of anyone? Nope. Has Scott Ritter celebrated the death of any innocent civilian? Nope. What did Scott Ritter say? Scott Ritter said, I don't believe in the mainstream narrative about Bucha. It seems to me there's more evidence of a Ukrainian operation where the Ukrainians executed people that they called saboteurs or collaborators, and we just saw all you have to do is label somebody without any proof whatsoever. Even if the proof is diametrically opposed, even if reality is diametrically opposed to your accusation, you could just accuse these people of being saboteurs or collaborators, and then you can liquidate them. So Scott Ritter said, I think it's probably more likely that the dead that we saw in Bucha were people that were executed by the Ukrainians because the Ukrainians said that they were going on clearing operations of saboteurs and collaborators. They explicitly said that. So Scott Ritter said, I think it's probably more likely that those dead folks in Bucha are actually people that the Ukrainians killed. Twitter deplatformed him. They banned him. I still, to this moment, I don't think that Scott Ritter has a Twitter account. Meanwhile, these folks can openly discuss the murder of a citizen journalist, and Twitter has no issue. Guy says, Sarah Ashton-Cirillo's Twitter description, killer of Russian disinformation and journalists. Wow. The lack of an Oxford comma wasn't an accident. Guy, honestly, I thought, thank you for the super chat, guys. As I said, you guys know that this video right here is going to be demonetized. You know that. They're going to demonetize us, so anything helps. Thank you very much for that. But I also know times are really, really tough, so I got a hard time asking people for super chats, so we're not going to do that on the channel. But I really appreciate it. But I agree with you. Killer of Russian disinformation. Right. Literally a killer of anything Russia. Guys, this is insanity. What we are seeing is a coordinated assault on your mind. This is the reason I'm telling everybody to share this video, is because this isn't ultimately about Lira, although it's immediately about Lira. What are these people trying to do? What they're trying to do is manage what we hear, manage information. Speech control is information control. Why are they trying to manage information? Because in a democracy where the people have the power to vote, you can affect what happens in your city, your state, your country, and if you're an American, the world. But you can only do that as an informed voter. So the point of the media apparatus in a democracy is to get the voter to know as closely as possible, get them closely as possible to the reality of the candidates and the issues and the policies as possible, so that they can be informed and either punish or reward our political, quote, overlords. There's an exchange that's happening. What we say is, we'll give you power if you give us this policy. That's how democracies work. But if you do not have the information, or if you are misinformed, that is going to determine who you give power to. So in a democracy, in order to control people, you have to control their thought process. But in a democracy, you can't come out and execute people on the street for putting out information you don't like. You have to come up with you've got to be a lot more elegant and sophisticated in the way that you quell speech and manage information control. You got to be a lot more intelligent about how you do that. That's why I'm telling you, this is not a battle between left wing and right wing anymore, guys. This is a battle between authoritarianism and freedom. Full stop. These people in this situation have completely and totally taken the mask off. We will kill you. If we can get away with it, we will kill you. That's how desperately important managing this information is to these people. They'll kill you. And dear listener, whether or not, like I said, there's a lot of intricacies to this situation. I am just some guy, okay? So we're all learning something new every single day. For example, did you know that we had an intercontinental ballistic missile test scheduled? We had an ICBM, an intercontinental ballistic missile. We had that. Let me show you guys something, okay? Here's just one example, guys. Okay? The U.S. military, I hope you guys are able to see this. Yeah, the U.S. military has canceled a test of its Minuteman III intercontinental ballistic missile that it had initially aimed only to delay in a bid to lower nuclear tensions with Russia during the war in Ukraine. The Pentagon first announced the delay of the test on March 2nd. So on March 2nd, we were going to test the Minuteman III, which is one of the most advanced intercontinental ballistic missiles in close to Eastern Europe. Okay, but they delayed the test a little bit. It publicly stated its intent was to delay the test a little bit. This was March 2nd. Remember, we had this scheduled to test on March 2nd. Okay, the Russians invaded 24 February. Okay. Altering the test schedule for Americans' ICBM force can be controversial. U.S. Senator Jim, the top Republican of the Senate Armed Services Committee, expressed disappointment in March at the delay of a test he says was critical to ensure America's nuclear deterrent remains effective. There's value in doing the test, but I don't think missing one test in the grand scheme of things is a really big deal. The nuclear-capable Minuteman III is part of the U.S. military strategic arsenal and has a range of 6,000 plus miles and can travel at a speed of approximately 15,000 miles per hour. I believe that would mean that it's hypersonic. Russian President Vladimir Putin said in February that his nation's nuclear forces should be put on high alert, raising fears that Russia's invasion of Ukraine could lead to nuclear war. But U.S. officials have said they see no reason so far to change Washington's nuclear alert levels. So, again, I've been saying over and over again, we have been provoking this conflict. We have not been de-escalating this conflict. We have been provoking this conflict. And as recently as March 2nd, we were about to test an ICBM that could reach Russia in minutes in that area. But Vladimir Putin is insane for saying that NATO expansion into Ukraine would be would put a threat to Russia. All right, guys. As I said, like, share, comment, and subscribe. Please share this video. Look, it doesn't look good for Gonzalo. If Gonzalo is alive, which I would, I hope and pray that he is, we will definitely report on that 100%. This is just a really sad situation, guys. Honestly, a really, really terrible situation. Gonzalo Lira missing. Gonzalo told us that if he was not heard from for 12 hours, it would be because the fascists in the SBU have him. So there's where we are, guys. There's where we are. It seems to me that there is no line anymore. This to me, people talk about red lines. This to me is a red line. Journalists should be sacred. This to me is a red line. These people have taken the mask off, and these people believe in thought control. They believe that that regular folks on the ground are a lower class than them, and that we should eat whatever's on the table, and we should never question what the ingredients are. And they believe not that they work for us. The media's job in a democracy is to work for the people. And the elected officials' job in a democracy is to work for the people. But they don't believe that. they believe their job is to, the elected officials in this country believe their job is to rule us. And the media arm in this country believes it is their job to put out information to influence us to be voluntarily ruled by people who do not have our best interests in heart. And a new wrinkle in all of this is social media, whose job it is to curtail independent media and independent information sources so that the unwashed masses don't get any funny ideas like free thought or critical thinking. So now we've got the social media arm of the empire who is making sure to pick off anybody and anyone who would speak against them, intimidate them, financially blackmail them. As I said, guys, thank you guys for the super chats, but you guys know this video is going to be demonetized. Anybody that does this on YouTube knows how to get viewers, subscribers, and monetization from YouTube. And it's not doing it this way. I will get you guys more updates on what's going on. And yeah, I have to say this. You know, on this day, think about this day, guys. You've got Edward Snowden, who has a run for his life. Julian Assange, who today, I believe the UK government has agreed to extradite him to the United States. And then you've got Gonzalo. It's no longer about left wing versus right wing. It's about authoritarianism versus freedom. Freedom of movement, freedom of speech, freedom of thought. Those are the sides. There is no middle ground. And that's horrible news, but it's also great news. I just saw a story where a lot of Trump youth are actually heavily in support of the Amazon labor union. Think about that. So on the outside, they're Trump youth, okay? But on the but internally, they're indistinguishable from a Bernie Sanders supporter when it comes to unionizing labor at Amazon. Guys, I'm telling you, these people, one of the ways that they maintain control over us is that they get us to hate each other. They get us to go after each other so we don't see who's really fucking shit up. That's why earlier today, I had somebody said something not necessarily nice about me. And I said, okay, brother, we'll talk about it. And at the end of the show, when he had to leave, he said, you know what? I agree with 99% of what you're saying. Respect to you. That's how we do it, guys. I'm not going to let anybody, whether you agree with me or disagree with me, I'm not going to let these people separate me from my brothers and sisters. The fact of the matter is, y'all, we need one another because we are not strong enough individually to beat these people. These people have infinite resources and infinite weapons. Okay? So we're not strong enough as individuals to take these people on. But collectively, if we're fearless, if we're like Assange and Gonzalo, if we're fearless and we're wise, we can win. And we can't win if we allow these people to manage and control information, because that is where the battle is being fought. It's being fought at the mind level because they understand they can't kill us all. And if 51% of us realize what the hell is happening, it's over for them. So I'm not gonna do this crazy thing where I'm gonna demonize everybody and all the rest of it. Although that's the ideal. Say it that way. That's the ideal. I'm going for the ideal. So I'm not going to do this thing where I demonize everybody who disagrees with me or whatever. We're going to have a discussion. That's what we do. If we disagree, there it is. Call in. Let's have a discussion. But I think all of us can agree that what happened to Gonzalo, if it's what happened to Gonzalo, is unacceptable in a free world. And everybody and anybody who's responsible for that needs to be held accountable. And no, I do not support death threats for Cirillo or anybody else, Sarah Cirillo, whatever her name is, or anybody else in the Daily Beast. So anybody who, I've seen a couple things, oh, we need to get revenge, yada, yada, yada. I don't support killing anyone. So when I say they need to be brought to justice or accountability, lawsuits, whatever it is, but there needs to be some sort of accountability for those people. The last thing I'll say is please be careful about what you put out in the ether as far as wishing death on people, etc., etc. And please, if you run into somebody who has a different opinion on you on these topics, try your hardest to not look at them as your enemy. Try to hear what they're saying. Try to hear what they're saying. Maybe there's a piece that you didn't consider. Maybe there's a piece about the situation that you and I haven't considered, and we can learn from each other. I've had a lot of opinions changed on this show. I've changed my opinion in real time. I've changed my opinion over time, and other people, vice versa, have said the same about the show as well. So that's the only way we're gonna get through all this. As I said, these people are too powerful for us individually, and the propaganda and the psychological operating is so deep that if you think that you yourself knows the truth, like you have a siloed sort of worldview where you know the truth and everybody else is silly, you can almost guarantee that you've been brainwashed. The only way that I can test whether or not I've been brainwashed is to listen intently to the arguments of the people who disagree with me. Otherwise, it's impossible to know whether or not you've been brainwashed. You live in this solipsistic sort of world. You're never going to know if you're brainwashed or not. You could be playing right into the hands of some very corrupt people. The way we're going to figure it out is if we are constantly talking to each other on the ground level. That's the only way we're going to make it, y'all. That's the only way. All right. Much love to all you guys. We'll be back with any updates. Thank you guys for the participation. Take care. Swift says, I love that an evangelical Christian is talking about other people being brainwashed. Well, I didn't say other people being brainwashed, Swift, because it applies to me as it applies to anybody else. Anytime we think that we ourselves, by ourselves, have the full understanding and exhaustive understanding of truth, then it's almost certain that we're brainwashed. I believe that truth can only be apprehended via the community and divine revelation. But on the human level, I believe that we can only apprehend what the truth is collectively. And that's why we have disagreements. That's why we have arguments. Arguments are people trying to figure out and wrestle with what the truth is. So, thank you for that. Either way, thank you for the participation, though. I appreciate it. All right, guys. I'll be back with an update. Much love to all of you guys. Please consider sharing the video, giving Gonzalo a voice, because I fear we'll never hear from our brother again. Much love to all of you guys. Vin out. In the meantime, love your neighbor, take care of each other. Middle America, we are the media. Till next time, guys.